Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not To Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Black Lightning. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we get even more insight into Gravedigger, even understanding what his name, where it came from. The fact of the matter is, he would basically have to basically bring back identification of people's bodies because he keeps people's dog tags and stuff like that. He says that basically at that time, obviously it was a job specifically for black people, but now it's like a situation of, he doesn't do it just to his allies. He also does it to his enemies because he believes, regardless of whoever it is, people who have a warrior's death deserve to, actually have a proper burial. So there's this interesting respect that he has, both obviously even for his enemies. He's like, if there's enough for them to get buried with. But for him, it's like he's so driven by revenge because he wants to make the U.S. pay, and not just the U.S. In particular. He's striking Freeland because Freeland's at the epicenter of all this, because obviously it's like where Markovia was, where the government started their experiments with metas before. Now those experiments with metas are like Freeland represents that, and so it's in a sense you have Gravedigger wanting to free Freeland from that. Like, the fact of the matter is, he wants to save all the metas. He wants to get Lynn and Jace so they can cure, stabilize all the Markovian metas, and also helping those who've been locked up for so long, because he knows what it's like to be kind of in that position where you've been held down and backed by, he was that for the government for so long. They experimented on him. They made him what he is. But it's a situation of, he's so driven by revenge that because it's that thing of he doesn't look at himself as a villain of the story. He's like, when it's all said and done, when all the bodies have been buried, I will be looked back on being on the right side of history. I mean, once again, no one ever wants to believe they're the villain of the story. He doesn't believe he is, because he's thinking I'm setting all these meta-humans free. Because the colonel before him was all about building a meta-human army. It's for him, I'm not doing that. I'm trying to save. It's I'm saving lives. I'm saving these metas' lives. And that starts with kind of taking his battle to Freeland, which obviously the thing is, if they don't stop Gravedigger, the government's going to make the choice to nuke Freeland. And it's now it's kind of not only are they up against it, because if they don't stop him, just to make sure they don't make, the government has decided to cut ties with Freeland and run. And the fact of the matter is, if this last stand doesn't work, then they will nuke Freeland, killing everyone in it if necessary. So obviously this battle means that much. There's also the side of things where Lynn is trying to she's thinking okay, so maybe there's a limitation to how much Gravedigger can do. The fact of the matter is, even with the boosters that allow him to get other metahuman's abilities, it's obviously he can only do one at a time. Yes, his extension of it is longer, because even Tobias could only last 20 minutes. It's maybe his will last 2 or so weeks. I'm that's interesting. It's a good thing he can only use one power at a time. It's very similar to a great example would be he's basically kind of become Peter from Heroes. At least kind of starting off, because Peter could absorb one ability at a time and use that. Well, the problem is, though, Jace adds in the variable of he is the original metahuman, so his DNA is a little different. And so because of that, he's able to hold multiple abilities for probably an indefinite amount of time, making him literally a walking metahuman machine. So, which is interesting, because basically, which I think it probably puts him on, probably even above DeVoe, because that was, remember when DeVoe ended up gaining every metahuman ability, basically with every new body he ended up getting on the Flash. So it's kind of a similar thing in that vein. But the real interesting turn of events, because at first, let's talk about. You gotta admit, Brendan's a little shitty for being I don't want any part of this. I get it. You want your mom dead. You want your mom avenged, so you want to kill Jace. But at the same time, it's this kind of takes precedent over everything. But for him, he's I don't care. This ain't my war. This ain't my fight. I got Jace in my grasp, and you want to work with her despite. It's because in times like this, you have to work with people you don't like. The fact of the matter is, it's just because you're still a teenager, you're so driven by all that. Yes, adults make mistakes. Look at Jeff. Jeff knows exactly how you feel. He literally had to go to Markovia to help rescue the man who killed his father. That ain't no easy pill for him to swallow, but he did it regardless. But Brendan's you're not going to be able to get your revenge. You're not going to be able to get the answers you want if Freeland ends up getting nuked. But it's I don't know how far, like whether they really brought that up, because they probably aren't telling anyone else about that. That's probably something just between, Gamby and Jeff, because he probably doesn't want to worry everyone else about that truth and everything. So, but obviously it's like the whole plan was like to kind of have like Jeff, Grace, and Anissa be the front line and have, the youngers, Erica, TC, Brandon, but he bails, and Jennifer on the back. Which even Jennifer's like, no, I should be in the forefront because like she's literally the strongest meta. She's definitely stronger than her dad. And even Gamby agrees, but then like Jeff is like, no, like you have to trust me. I have you on the back burners for a particular reason. But then Gamby's like, the only reason why you keep her in the background is because even you don't think you could go beat Gravedigger. And it's like, it wasn't that easy of a fight the last time they crossed paths. So it's understandable why, especially if he's got other meta abilities under his belt too. So it's understandable why he might be a little more reserved. I mean, to be fair, it's like if it's putting his life in danger, if it comes down to that, so be it. But it's like he's scared to like put, because I think if anything happens, even if it's just Anissa and Grace, he could probably get Grace to get Anissa out of there or something like that. And if Jennifer's in the background, because he knows how headstrong she is, how she'd go full force and all this, kind of go all out, and he wants, he's still trying to protect his family, which that's a whole conversation itself, because Lynn ends up discovering something. Like, what did she find out? And it turns out that she ran it, and it turns out that Gravedigger and Jeff are related. I was like, wait, what? I was like, is he your grandfather? But it's like, no, he's your great uncle, which is interesting. He's like, I'd heard about him. He'd like, I guess just assumed he died in the war, but he was like, no one actually ever said he died. He just never came back. And so now it also makes sense why, out of any metahumans, why Jeff, Anissa, and Jennifer are the only stable metahumans by nature. And it's like, well, it's understandable because they're literally legacy level metas, which is interesting because it basically flows in their DNA. But that's also what kind of goes through my mind. I'm curious. Well, we see what Gravedigger is able to do. I'm wondering if push comes to shove, and maybe this will happen, maybe it won't. Could Jeff be the one to do? Could he do the same thing? I mean, who knows? Maybe doing what Gravedigger did, maybe that would overload his system. Like, it might give him like a temporary, like, I got all the meta abilities. Maybe it could do that, but it would probably burn through his body, unlike it doesn't burn through Gravedigger. That's what immediately went through my mind now that we know that they're related and everything, which that's got a hard enough pill to swallow, which even Lynn later on is like, so I got to tell you something else. And he's like, what? Tobias is my cousin? She's like, no. The fact of the matter is he's dangerous, especially, what this means, that, this means he could come take our daughters. Like, the fact of the matter is you said you would fight for our family. So basically suggesting, like, I know you've had your rule of not killing, and I love that about you, but the fact of the matter is, this might be one of those instances which Jeff is like, whoa, but no, like, you promised, you had me, you never wanted me to go down that route. It's like, yes, and I want you to hold on to not killing people, but it's like, this is a situation where it's like, it's kind of kill or be killed, because we can't take any chances with, Gravedigger, because, you wanted to protect our family, and that's all I'm asking you to do, protect our family. So Jeff might have to cross that line if it means protecting his family, and that's, that's a struggle for any hero, like, under these circumstances, if it means protect, because it's not just about protecting his family too, it's also about protecting all of Freeland, because if they do not stop, Gravedigger, it's endgame essentially, for Freeland. So it's that complicated thing of like, are you willing to cross that line, cross that code? Especially because the hard thing is, like, even though he's a bad guy and you know what he's planning on doing, you find out he's family too, that's still got to sting a little bit. Because no matter what, you can understand why he's doing it. Granted, he's going about it the wrong way, but you can understand the sentiment of like, the government, all that they've done, like, they're literally the reason, like, metahumans have become a thing. It's because they made me. They did all that shady stuff in Markovia. Now they've been doing it for the past 30 plus years or whatever in Freeland. So it's like, you can understand why. You don't have to agree with it, but you can understand, but it's just that complicated thing, and I think that whole element is going to be something that, floats in Jeff's mind when it comes to this fight. I do like the fact is there are some adorable moments in all of this, like the whole Erica and TC situation. It's like, yeah, we could end up dying. We're about to be a part of a war and everything. TC's like, yeah, man, I've never kissed a girl. And she's like, really? Did you just try to use us potentially dying tomorrow as an excuse to get a kiss? And he was kind of like, oh, yes. And it's just like, it's like, yeah, but just, I really haven't kissed a girl. And she kisses him. So it's like, oh. And it's like, he's like, so does this mean that you like me? She's like, no, I took pity on you. And then Jennifer shows up. Am I interrupting something? Erica's like, no. TC's like, yes. And it's like, I look, he walks over and he's like, telling Jennifer, like, come on, you see what's happening? You're interrupting this. She's like, boy, that girl don't like you. He's like, yes, she does. It's kind of adorable. But I also love it because it's like, what was it? Like, Erica was like, why are you so itching for a fight, Jennifer? And TC's like, because she's mad aggressive. And Jennifer's like, no, I'm not. And Erica's like, you kind of are, because it turns out she's looking for Gravedigger. She wants TC to let her know the moment he finds out where Gravedigger is. And I'm like, oh, come on, don't do that, Jennifer. Kind of going off like that has not worked out for you in the past at all. You would kind of hope that you can learn from history, but at the same time, it is that thing of like, my dad's not going to put me in the front lines. He needs me in the front lines. If I don't do this now, she ends up saying that later on, it means protecting everything and everyone that she loves, her family and everything, so like, it's like, if my dad won't put me in the front line, I need to go search out Gravedigger and take care of him myself, because this is the only way I can make sure that my family's okay. Because at the same time, all this is happening, you have the whole thing with, Anissa and Grace. And it's interesting because Grace is like, yeah, suddenly like she's got like superhuman strength and stuff like that. She doesn't even have to shift and stuff. But it's like basically Anissa's like basically shifting takes like it takes a toll on her muscles, and now her body's like adapting and compensating for the factors of like kind of the strain shifting puts on her body, and so her body is kind of reacting by kind of evolving, and she's like, into what? And Anissa's kind of like, I don't know, but I'm like, that does beg the question. I hope it doesn't turn into a sad situation where it's like Grace ends up becoming more animalistic now, because maybe she ends up losing kind of that human side of her. Maybe like when she shifts, it becomes harder to turn back into herself. That she always kind of had a bit of an identity crisis because of just like her past trauma and just everything, she's been through and her powers. But I think on top of all of that, like it might put such a strain on her body that maybe shifting becomes very dangerous. That could be a potential route they're setting up. But, for Anissa, she's like, I could, spend the rest of my life like this. And Grace is like, I know. And she's like, no, I mean, I could spend the rest of my life like this. And Grace is like, what are you talking about? She's like, you know what I'm talking about? I'm like, oh, shit. Like, yo, you about to put a ring on it? Totally ends up being the case. And I love when they're throwing, like, the little family get-together and everything. They drop that knowledge. And, like, Lynn and Jeff are looking like, wait, what? Everyone else is super happy. Obviously, Jennifer is like, oh my God, so that's all, a neat element. But obviously, even Lynn's like, are you sure about this? Which she's like, I get it, Mom. Like, I'm jumping, like, but the fact of the matter is, tomorrow's not guaranteed. And the fact of the matter is, if I go out there and knowing I wanted to do this, but I didn't, take advantage of this opportunity and actually, propose and marry Grace, I knew I'd regret it for the rest of my life. So it's like, would you do this, if we weren't literally heading into a war tomorrow? And she's like, yes, granted, it wouldn't be as expedited, but still, And Lynn, it's like, I get it. You found someone that you love, and, me and your dad obviously got your back through it all, And that's what kind of worries me about, because of what they set that up as. I'm like, that something's going to happen where Grace is going to jeopardize like what they have, and it's just going to, it's going to suck. And the sweet thing too is Grace being like, oh, like, it's like, she's still happy to be welcomed into their family, because for her, it's like she never had like a sister, but then Jennifer's like, well, you do now. And it's like, and then, it's like, even telling Jeff, thanks for being so welcoming to my welcoming me into your family, because we learned a little bit about Grace's like complicated history like last season, but we've never really dived too deeply into it. So I'm wondering, that the fact is, it's kind of that whole thing of like, we don't know that much about, Grace. And, obviously it's like, just Anissa being like, but she's a good person and I love her. That's kind of all that matters. But it's like, I get the feeling like Grace's past is probably going to come back and haunt her potentially, depending on how everything ends up shaking out, but still. Another element to this too is like, well, really quickly, like we see that Gravedigger is examining everyone's abilities, kind of like, running through what everyone is capable of doing. So that's an interesting, element to this all as well. So he's kind of, because at first I was wondering, is he going to try and copy everyone's abilities? Stuff later on makes me wonder, like, because at first, because I was like, I don't think it is. Because at first I was wondering if that was what that power he had, like protecting himself when him and Jennifer eventually fight. We'll get to that later, but I was wondering if that was supposed to be Erica's like kinetic energy thing. But I was like, no, I think like he'd have to get like samples of their DNA to copy their abilities like that. So, but it's just more so about warfare of understanding who you're going up against, so he knows what abilities to give himself to counteract everyone else's powers. I think is what that was more so about. But also, know thy enemy type of situation. But we still haven't seen the full scope of all the abilities that we see. The telekinesis that he has, and his natural ability to control people's minds. So it's like, impose his will on other people. So like, along with all that, we don't know like what else he's got in his bag. Well, we see some of it, but like I said, little tidbit to this episode is Brandon having Jace. He's captured her and he wants her to give him answers. And I'm like, you pick literally the worst time to be pulling this stunt, Brandon. It is literally the worst time considering everything that's going down. But that's why I'm like, I don't think Jeff and them told them everything. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But another element to this is Odell and Lady Eve. Which, interesting enough, last episode, I assumed that was a hologram of Odell. I mean, granted, he'd done that before, but it was like, it should have been, it was like, that's why I was like, I guess I just assumed, I didn't expect him to come back to Freeland. But it's like, well, he has his reasons for coming back to Freeland. Is it just solely the suitcase, or are there other reasons? I'm assuming it's just the suitcase because all the information up there, it's some damning information. Because even Eve doesn't know what's up there. Odell probably has an idea of everything that's up there. But even that's above his pay grade. So it's probably just a thing of like, it's compromising information for the president. So obviously his job is to protect the president, but still. I was at, because even Eve was like, I never expected you to actually kind of come back in yourself. And I was like, yeah, that's why I was like, oh, I expected her to kind of reach over and be like, he's a hologram. I was like, no, I guess it really is him. I just didn't expect you to do that. But it's a whole conversation of Eve wants to be back on the shadow board, because it turns out like obviously what she brought to the table is because of her criminal connections and stuff like that. I think wasn't it like the whole thing of like, she brought them the resources, and like, I think she kind of acted as like the money for like, the ASA and stuff like that, but she wants back on the board, and she's willing to give the location of the suitcase, which we now know. Well, we know Gambi has it, so that means like the ASA is going to be sending. Odell is probably going to be sending people after Gambi to get that information. I'm still surprised that hasn't come up, that TC doesn't know that Gambi's the one that captured him and everything. I feel like that's going to come up at the most inconvenient times too. Like I feel like that's something that potentially get dropped next episode. I don't know. Like someone's going to probably try and use that information against them. We'll kind of have to, see. But, and also Eve was talking about, kind of basically getting back on not only just a shadow board, but also getting her cartel back. Because for her, it's like running Freeland is kind of a, top priority for her. It's like, so I'm curious to see what's going to end up happening on that front. Obviously, there's the whole Lala situation. Lala's kind of forcing Eve's hand to kind of give him the information about like, oh yeah, who's the last person to saw Tobias? Turns out it's Dr. Blair, and proceeding to get Devontae to beat on him until they like, yeah, if you see Tobias, it's like, yeah, he's like, I have no idea where Tobias is, and it's like, I almost believed you. So going to use him as a means, because I guess eventually Tobias is going to come back to Freeland. He has to, just because I guess it's like this is where all his power and position is. So probably outside of that kind of doesn't hurt too much. So maybe that's kind of what that's insinuating. So Lala, once again, so many people so dead set on revenge, and it's not going to work out for them. It really does. I didn't even talk about it, but Black Lightning and Thunder go to ask Lala for help, but he's like, no. Even with it being presented like this city's going to get nuked and everything, which does show that at least Anissa knew. So he must have. So that kind of nullifies what I brought up earlier. He must have made it clear to everyone, not unless it's only people in his family that know. I don't know. He probably did make it pretty clear to everyone, which makes Brendan even shittier for the fact is that you're so caught up in your revenge. Once again, I get it. This is your mom we're talking about, but come on, bro, read the room. Read the literal war that's at your doorstep and just what that means in the grand scheme of things, So that's a whole, complicated thing in itself. But there's also the angle of Khalil, which he was leaving town, got jumped by some Markovians, but then like his other self got out, Painkiller gets out and proceeds to kick everyone's ass and kill them. But, you know, and I like what Painkiller says. That basically, this isn't just a new thing. It's like, I've always been here. I've been that rage that pushed your shit, when you pushed yourself at any aspect, staying up long nights to get the good grades, or what was it, on the track team or something like that, like stuff like that. Every aspect of your life where you had to dig deep and then that rage to push yourself, getting through all those spine replacement surgeries and stuff like that, it's because of me. Basically saying, you can't do anything without me. Like, you can try and run from the truth, but I'm always going to be here. And it's like, you know, and so they fight for dominance, and sadly it looks like Khalil ends up getting locked up, and Painkiller's free, and he's going out there and he plans on killing the Pierce family, which is like, once again, this is a terrible time considering everything that's going down too. But also got to give mad props to Jennifer doing that whole thing. Once again, it's like, that's super badass. Like, the fact of what she did, like flying into the air like that. Just, we've seen her do it before, but now it's just like sucking in all that energy. And she came down like a meteor, like a literal burning star. And I was like, that's actually super dope. Takes down everyone except Gravedigger, and you know, once again, he's trying to make her understand. But for him, it's like you're trying to force people to leave that don't want to leave. So I'm here to stop you. But even as powerful as she is, she couldn't go up against him. And in fact, he grabs her, throws her against the shield of town. Like, so I guess he, in particular, put her at the edge of town, fought her at the edge of town. So, because like the shield around town ends up coming down because of, like, she basically overloads the system and ends up getting shot into the air. Luckily, Jeff was able to catch her. He ends up restarting her heart, but then, you know, Gravedigger's there, and then your boy Jeff is lighting up, supercharging himself, and they charge towards each other, and into the episode, which I'm like, all right, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. Next episode is, in fact, the season finale. It's going to be crazy to see how this ends up playing out. I'm curious, are we setting Gravedigger up to be like, is this going to be the end for him, or will he end up kind of, you know, living past it? I don't know. Once again, that's a thing of like, this is your family, and what the implications of that could mean potentially for Jeff, for Anissa, for Jennifer, because it seems like, obviously, hell, Jennifer's stronger than Jeff, but even she couldn't go up again. But to be fair, Jennifer is more powerful, but Jeff has more of a, you know, tactically, he's older, he's wiser, so he knows how to fight, you know, more efficiently than her. But it's like, I don't know, especially like, you know, Grace and Anissa will probably show up soon, but it's like, even then, it's like, it's probably literally going to take everyone to take him down. But also, like, the shield around town's down, so the Markovian army can roll in. No telling what other metas he's got with him too. So it's a long list of things could easily go sideways, especially the ASA kind of bouncing, like, makes you wonder, like, how many people are actually still in town. Like, literally has everyone bailed. We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, I'm so curious to ultimately see how all this ends up playing out in the season finale. But really, that's all I want to talk about today. Next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.